guys, David Bay back again for another episode of MD Training 101. Today's episode brought to you by Iron Rebel Power Gear and StrongSupplements.com. Make sure to check out Strong Supplements for all your nutritional supplemental needs in Iron Rebel Power Gear at ironrebel.com for all your men and women's apparel as well as training gear. For those of you tuning in for the very first time, MD Training 101 is a basic training series focused on the fundamentals of weightlifting, making sure we get you guys started off on the right foot. For today's workout, we're going to be focusing on one of the body parts that is often skipped but never should be, the legs. Guys, we're going to get things started. Not going to waste any time. Let's go. All right, guys, the first exercise we're going to be doing in our leg routine is the squat. Now, the squat is as basic as it gets for any leg day, but also should be incorporated in pretty much any training routine, whether you're a power lifter, a bodybuilder, a football player, a wrestler, you name it. The squat is something that every athlete is going to want to make the cornerstone of their weight training routine. Now, guys, as with any other exercise, we like to go over some of the mistakes that we tend to see with the squat. The two main mistakes that we see are guys not going deep enough and knees going too far forward. Now, the first of these two mistakes is generally, like a lot of other things, due to guys using too much weight. Now, for today's examples, guys, I just got the bar on here with the angle of the camera. If I put some weight on, you're not going to be able to see my head, and for as pretty as I am not, I want you to still be able to see me while I'm talking to you and kind of guiding you through this exercise. So again, the first mistake that we see most often is depth. When we get the bar on our back, and we'll go over that a little bit more, we see a lot of guys doing this. You know, they'll load up way too much weight. We've seen this a million times at the gym. Guys, as with anything else, range of motion is very important for the squat. So you want to make sure that you're using a weight that you can handle and go down deep enough with. Now, what is deep enough for a squat? Generally speaking, when your thigh is parallel with the floor. A lot of guys have big hamstrings, big quads, so what does that mean when we say your thigh is parallel to the floor? I'll just say your femur bone. So mid-thigh parallel to the floor. Now, when you're doing a good squat, you're going to come down, head up, nice and parallel. Now, like I said before, one of the biggest mistakes that we see with the squat, especially with beginners, is instead of guys dropping their butt down in a seated position like this, we see people start bending their knees forward. When you tell somebody to squat down, they start doing this. And that's when you see the heels coming off the floor, knees bending forward. It looks like a real uncomfortable position. Now, for a lot of beginners, you have a hard time getting that motion down. And what I like to do for people who are having a little bit of a difficult time feeling out the difference between a squat and bending their knees forward is I'll put a bench or a chair or even stack some plates and put it behind their butt. Now, I have a bench here at Crunch. I'm a short guy, so this isn't going to quite give me the depth I want, but we're going to use it for example purposes. Now, if I have this bench or chair sitting behind me, and I put a bar on my back and I say, okay, sit down, I'm not going to just bend my knees like this. I would sit down on it like I would a chair or a toilet seat per se. But again, if I sit back down on this and I put the weight on my shoulders, you're going to see that I'm sitting in a good squat position. Again, if I say, hey, sit down on the bench, nobody with the bar on their back is going to do one of these. So again, for you beginners out there having a little bit difficult time finding what the right motion is going down into your squat, again, putting a chair or stacking a couple plates under your butt helps out a lot. But again, basic exercise, guys, one of the biggest mistakes that guys also tend to make is they put the bar up too high in the back of their neck, and that can be painful. Even for somebody who squats 400 or 500 pounds, having 135, just the bar and a plate on each side, can be really painful if you have it in the wrong spot. And again, a lot of people tend to put it right there. You really want the bar sitting back on your traps. It's a nice padded. If you get in the right squat position, that bar is not going to roll off backwards. Sometimes it helps to have your hands there, and it should be there anyway for safety purposes. But again, you don't want the bar sitting right at the back crevice of the neck. So what we're going to do, this particular squat rack, as you guys can see, has the notches in it, so it's not adjustable, but you want to adjust it where you can get out into a good position. Always use the safety racks, guys. Now, I've moved this safety rack a little bit lower than I would normally have it, just for instructional purposes, but trust me, you don't want to be doing squats without the safety rack. Now, you see a lot of people use a traditional squat rack and they'll step outside of it. Guys, a minor cramp or a little pull or something in your quad that would normally be a pretty insignificant injury can be really major if you go down with the weight and you don't have safety pins to catch it again. So you could squat a million times and it only takes one time for it to go wrong to see a serious injury, and guys, we have seen it. So again, safety pins always. So again, I'm gonna get in under this bar. I'm getting it back on my traps, and you guys can see where this bar is sitting if I turn like this. A lot of times people have the bar sitting up high, and even with just 45 pounds, this is pretty uncomfortable. So again, you want the bar sitting back on the traps. I'm gonna get my feet about shoulder width apart, head up. Now my first powerlifting coach always taught me, if you're having troubles keeping your back in a good position, pick a spot on the wall and look up and focus on it. Guys, that's still a great piece of advice, because what you wanna make sure you're doing is keeping your back nice and arched and your head up. And if I'm looking down at the floor and my back is arched, then I'm in a bad position. I can't even look up at the ceiling if I'm not in the right spot. So I'm gonna get this bar on my shoulders, just behind my neck on my traps, head up, feet shoulder width apart, and I'm just gonna squat down with my butt coming down in a seated position. Now personally, I like to go a little bit deeper than parallel. It's just a matter of personal preference. If you can do it without causing strain on your knees and your lower back. Some guys do like to go ass to the floor just to get a little bit better range of motion. But again, it's a matter of whether you can do it comfortably. If you're doing the squats to parallel, that's a good squat. You don't necessarily need to go down that far. Again, I prefer it that way. Some other guys do, but you got to make sure you're doing it right. All right, guys, now the only other note I'm going to make about the squat and your leg day is shoes. Now, I'm not overly particular about the shoes that I wear for the rest of my workouts, but with my squats, I want a very flat, firm bottom shoe. I'm wearing a pair of Nike Free 1.0s. It's their most minimal shoe that they make in the Free line. 3.0s, Nike Metcons, your Reebok CrossFit shoes, designated weightlifting shoes with the solid platform. Even going old school with a pair of Chuck Taylors, some wrestling shoes, some Atomics, or even real old school and going barefoot is good. What we don't want to do is we don't want to have a shoe with a big cushion on it. What that can cause is some lateral instability when the shoe is giving. So shoes like Air Maxes or Shocks that are great otherwise for comfort and training, something you might want to avoid on leg day altogether, especially with the squats when you're doing a free weight and when you have to worry about forward and backward balance and all that stuff. So again, good pair of shoes goes a long way with these squats. All right, guys, the next exercise is going to be the leg press. Again, a real basic leg day movement. This one's pretty hard to screw up, guys. The leg press, obviously a machine. It's controlling your motion from side to side in both up and down, so it's not too difficult to get good form. Again, one of the biggest mistakes that we see, guys, overloading the weight, using too much weight that they can't handle, and short stroking it, not coming down far enough. However, on this particular exercise, one of the mistakes that we do see also is guys going too deep. Now, what can happen on a leg press when you go too deep is if your legs come down too deep, what it can actually do is roll the bottom of your butt off the pad, kind of compact your spine a little bit. We see it quite often with the leg press, and unfortunately, it's usually done when people have the right intentions trying to go deep enough, but you got to be careful. It also happens if you have your feet too high, similar to this, guys. So this is what we don't want to do. Come down and let your butt roll off the back of the pad. And we do see that a lot. Again, guys will come down and their butt will start rolling off. You want to get your feet shoulder width apart. Leg variations are something guys like to do on leg press. Some people prefer legs in a little bit wider, up. Again, it's just a matter of what you find comfortable, but you want to get your feet in a good, solid position. Again, make sure you have a weight you can handle. Helps to have a spotter on these exercises just in case you go to failure and get stuck. But we're going to start here. Use our hands here for bracing the exercise. Back all the way against the pad. I keep my head off the pad a little bit, but some people find it more comfortable to lean your head all the way back. But you just want to make sure that your hips and your back have a good support system. Shoulder width apart. We're just going to come down nice and deep and back up. Again, I'm not doing this right here, but I'm also not coming down so deep that my butt's rolling off the pad. It's just finding a nice sweet spot where your legs come down, make a good 90-degree angle, and push back up. right, guys, next up for leg day is going to be the lunge. Now, with our squat and our leg press, working both legs at the same time. This is going to be the first exercise where we're doing each leg individually, but we're going to go back and forth between the legs. Now, with this particular exercise, guys, form is of the utmost importance, as it is with anything else. What we're going to want to do with the lunge, when you're taking this step out, again, you're going to stand shoulder width apart. You're going to take a step out, and it's kind of like a one-legged squat. The most important thing to focus on is how far out you're stepping. What we want to end up doing is stepping out and having your leg make about a nice 90-degree angle. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, but your squatting leg, or your lunging leg rather, you want it about a 90-degree angle when you step back up. What you don't want to do is you don't really want to overextend like this. That's going to throw off your balance. Your leg might be at a 90-degree angle, but it's going to be hard to step back if you really overextend. The other thing that we see guys doing wrong is stepping too short. When you step like this, and you can see your knee goes real far out over your toe. You don't want that. It's going to put some strain on the calf. It's going to put some strain on the knee. Not how we want to do things. Again, you want to step out where you're comfortable enough to get back up with some power, but also make sure that your knee is at a good 90-degree angle. Now, there's a couple different ways to do the lunge. You can do it with a bar over your back. If you start going heavier, that can be a little bit tricky for beginners to get the weight up there. If you're not stepping out of a squat rack, if you do walking lunges or lunges outside or on a track or whatever, it can be tricky to get the bar up on your back. So I like to recommend dumbbells for beginners. It's, again, pretty basic, guys. Pick dumbbells up, keep your back nice and straight. If you got a weak grip, sometimes it helps to use wraps even to hold on to the dumbbells. For instructional purposes, I'm going a little light here, so I didn't use wraps. But I do use wraps sometimes when I get heavier for my lunges. But again, feet shoulder width apart, chest nice and big. I'm just going to step out. I'm going to start with my right leg, come back up, feet back together, shoulder width apart, resetting. Stepping out with my other leg, back up, and repeat. Now, another variation of this particular exercise is the walking lunge. Now, with the walking lunge, it's going to be essentially the same function, except what we're doing, instead of stepping back into our position and resetting, we're just going to be walking forward. So I'm going to take my step out, up, out, up. Now, some guys don't prefer to let their feet meet in the middle. They just do it like you would a regular walk. That's going to look like this, guys. I'm going to step, step, step. Again, it all just becomes a matter of personal preference. You can do the walking lunge with the bar on your back. Again, you can do it out of a squat rack where you just step out with the bar and you do the lunge as I had showed in the beginning. But again, pretty basic exercise, great for working your legs individually, great for balance, working those stabilizers, and really making sure you hit the legs all around. All right, guys, so our first three exercises in our leg day were compound movements. We did the squat, the leg press, and the walking lunge. We're going to finish off with some isolation exercises. This is a leg extension, very standard exercise for the quads. This particular machine or variations of it can be found in just about any gym. This is a pretty tough one to screw up, guys. As with other exercises, pretty much the only mistakes we see is the people using too much weight and short stroking it because they can't extend fully to the top, or people getting up and kind of trying to heave ho with their whole body. But again, this is a pretty simple exercise. The design of most machines makes it pretty difficult to cheat on this one. As with any exercise, we want to pick a weight that we're comfortable starting off with, that you can do with good form. You want to adjust the back pad and the rest of the machine so that your knees are right in line with the pivot point. Now, this particular machine, as you can see, or maybe you can't see if I move over here a little bit, has a pivot point marked very clearly. So it's easy to look, make sure your knees are lined up with that. You want to be going with the motion of the machine, guys. You don't want to be fighting the motion of the machine. So again, I'm going to get my seat set, a weight that I'm comfortable with. I'm going to hold on to these handles, and guys, this is a pretty simple one. You're just kicking your legs out. Make sure you're going all the way up so you get a good squeeze of those quads. All right, guys, and our final exercise in our leg day today is going to be the lying leg curl. This exercise is going to focus on the back of your legs, the hamstring. Guys, Another basic exercise, this particular machine, the lying leg curl, can be found in most gyms. Some gyms have an alternate version where you're sitting upright and your legs are curling down like this. We're going to use this machine for today's purposes because it is the most common in most gyms. So guys, with this particular machine, again, you're going to want to set the machine up so that you fit in comfortably. You want the pad to be across the back of your ankles. You don't want it too high up on your calves. You don't want it pushing on your heels. And you want your knees lined up with a pivot point or as close as you can get. This particular machine is very nice here at Crunch Fitness. We got the elbow pads. The handles are in a good position. So I'm just going to lay down, get into position. As you can see, the back of the pad right across my Achilles, right above my heels, so it's in a very comfortable position. This particular machine, again, very comfortable. I'm in a great position. As with the leg extension, this machine is almost impossible to cheat on. Pretty much the only mistake we see on this particular machine is guys not going through the full range of motion. But again, guys, get a weight you're comfortable with, get in, and get to work. All right, guys, and that is going to do it for another episode of MD Training 101. Let's do a little recap of today's leg day. We started off with the squats, went to the leg press, over to our lunges, leg extensions, and our leg curls, those two isolation exercises. Now, as with all of our other routines, guys, make sure you get a good warm-up in before you get started with your heavy lifting. Some people prefer to do warm-up sets before each exercise. That's great if you feel like you need it, but I would definitely not skip doing at least 2 to 3 warm-up sets before hitting those squats. Some people prefer 4 or 5 or more. Again, just a matter of personal preference, whatever you feel comfortable doing to make sure that once you get into those working sets, you're not facing any sort of injuries or pulling any muscles or anything like that. As far as rep range on your leg day with those heavier exercises, the squats, the lunges, and the leg press, generally speaking, I like to stick between 6 to 10, maybe 6 to 12. You go lower than 6, that's when you're getting real heavy. You tend to see injuries more often in that real low rep range. You start getting higher than 12, and you're doing more aerobic work than you are muscle building. With the leg extensions and the leg curls, some people prefer to go a little bit higher reps with those, but I wouldn't really get much over 12 to 15 with those exercises either. Again, getting too much into your aerobic work. Guys, as with all the other workouts that we've done here, the best advice I can give to you guys is train smart, train hard, check your ego at the door, and you're going to see the progress you want to see. That's going to do it for this week of MD Training 101. Make sure you tune in next week for a new exercise and new tips on how to make your time in the gym the most effective as it can be. We're out.